important announcements based on decisions that were made within the last 24 hours. As you all aware, the government of Trinidad and Tobago declared a state of emergency on the 18th of July 2025, and we subsequently went to the Parliament to extend that period of the state of emergency for a period of 3 months. And given the efforts of the ongoing state of emergency and the efforts by the TTPS and the armed forces to fully disrupt cells that were involved in a plot to destabilize the state, the government has accepted the advice of its security experts that the Independence Day Parade for 2025 and the associated official functions will be cancelled. The government's national security advice is that the gathering of the President, all government and opposition members, members of the judiciary, together with a large contingent of the marine, land, and air assets of the Defense Force and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in one location would be unwise at this time. In those circumstances, we ask citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, patriots of our dear republic, to observe a day of prayer and reflection for the success and prosperity of our great nation. I also would want to share with you, members of the media, certain successes that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and all other armed forces of national security has made so far since the announcement of the SOE from the 18th of July to present. There was a total of 2,126 operations. There were 898 target or priority offenders. 13,643 searches were conducted with respect to vehicles and premises. 936 persons were arrested. We had 76 firearms found or seized of various assortments: revolvers, pistols, shotguns, rifles, and air rifles. There was a total number of 1,027 ammunitions found and seized, again of various assortments. So far, we have also seen, based on the announcement by the Commissioner of Police also, that there has been a 34% drop in the murder rate for the corresponding period of the year 2024. So the state of emergency so far has shown incredible success with respect to lowering the crime rate and also the murder rate, together with various operations that were conducted owing to several successes. So at this time, the government has taken a very difficult decision to not disrupt these successes with respect to what we have made so far in the state of emergency. So therefore, we have called on all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to understand this decision. And we use this day to pray and reflect to support our law enforcement efforts so that we can ensure that this nation remains a safe and secure paradise and restore peace to our beloved republic. We also have made decisions with respect to the fireworks display, and Minister Alexander would be able to elaborate on those matters. Minister Alexander.
Thank you, and good evening all. The administration has since cancelled the sponsorship of the fireworks display. We have seen it fit at this time to not to burden the public purse with that type of sponsorship when we could use it at this time to further conduct operations which will further disrupt the organized crime syndicate. We also want to inform members of the public that the government will, however, issue permits solely for the sale and use of silent fireworks. So in other words, when UNC wins, the animals won, the elderly won, the unborn children won, the newborn babies won, and those who are sick and afflicted, lying in bed, they too won. That decision, again, taking into consideration the burden on the public purse, we prefer to use that funds to help to strengthen the security apparatus in this fight against organized crime. Yeah?
Members of the media, those are three very important announcements that the government has made. One, this year there will be no Independence Day parade. However, we are urging citizens to join with us for National Day of Prayer and Reflection due to the state of emergency. Secondly, the cancellation of state-sponsored fireworks display. And three, the policy of silent fireworks for private displays only. We will now invite members of the media who have questions.
You said that the public purse is going to be protected by the cancellation of these events. Could you give us a figure as to how much is expected to be saved by this cancellation?
So Minister Alexander spoke of the state-sponsored fireworks in terms of the savings that will be redound and also will now be used for law enforcement. As you know, the government is now saddled with a $9 billion deficit, which we had met when we came into government, and we had the subsequent supplementation coming out of the mid-year review. With respect to the exact figures, we can provide those figures with you with respect to what it cost, but I can tell you various state agencies would have sponsored the fireworks and so on, together with the cost associated with the parade. Those are matters that we have looked at, and we have believed as a government that we can use those funds and channel it towards law enforcement to conduct further operations in order to handicap the criminals.
But you don't have the exact figure or ballpark figure at this time?
Those figures will amount to millions.
Now, as you said, amounting to millions, we're 2 weeks away from Independence Day. There would have been contractors hired to beautify a lot of state buildings, provide lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever, for the members of the national security who would have been preparing for that day and other events. What is to happen with those contracts?
Well, that's a speculative question. Unless you have the facts and the details that contracts were in fact awarded, then I'll be able to answer that. But as this time, we as a government, we took the decision that we will use the savings from these particular functions and events for fight against crime.
As far as you're aware, were any contracts awarded for any state agency for the Independence Day celebrations?
As I said, we have considered all of the matters, and those savings will go towards the fight against crime.
I just want to get a yes or no. Are there contractors right now who are concerned, worried, fearful that they are going to lose out on a significant sum because of the cancellation?
I can tell you none of the contractors have reached out to us.
But they are contractors.
I can't tell you at this time, but no contractors have reached out to us. The government has taken a very responsible decision with respect to national security. There are two factors that you're overlooking here. One, the exposure and the risk to the law enforcement officers who are under threat when we declare the state of emergency. And two, we're using the savings from these functions to help with the fight against crime. It's a two-dimension fold.
Let me go on the first dimension. The Commissioner of Police has said repeatedly that the initial plot to destable has been, I want to use the word minimized. He said it has more or less been dealt with, and there are other issues that the state of emergency can't treat with at this time. Given that that is so, why then the need for the cancellation if the reason for the SOE has been already dealt with?
You would have remembered that when we declared the state of emergency on the 18th of July, a few days later we went to the Parliament to justify the extension of the SOE for a further 3 months, which meant that the threat still exists. It was very clear on the Hansard record that we have said that we were able to disrupt the criminal syndicate. The threat continues to exist. You would have seen the minister issue various detention orders with respect to various criminals or alleged criminals in those regards, and those persons have been detained pursuant to the emergency powers regulation under the state of emergency. So to couch it in such a way that as soon as we declared the state of emergency, the threat became non-existent, that is not a true reflection of the situation. In fact, we went to the Parliament to justify where we even had the support of the opposition with respect to the extension of the SOE.
Again, the Commissioner of Police would have said, even after you all went to the Parliament to get the extension, that the threat was already dealt with. I see your colleague is eager to butt in here.
I know sometimes persons don't understand how threats are measured or a threat level, how it is dealt with. Even if the threat levels is lessened, until that threat level is completely destroyed, then the investigations continues. So to say that the commissioner said what he said, and you of the opinion that that means the end of it all, now I don't think that you're looking into this right.
Correct.
In fairness to you.
Now, you mentioned the serious senior members of the judiciary as well as the government going into one place that would have raised some concerns. But we also have other public events where we are seeing the Prime Minister and other senior members of the government and the judiciary and other aspects of state having those functions. Why then are we still having those other functions?
So there's a number of issues must be taken into consideration when you see the gathering of especially the PM and all of that. It takes a lot of resources, some that you don't see, in order to have the place secured to such an extent that the likelihood of something happening is almost zero. All right? But we cannot say, sometimes we don't know, the police don't know, or cannot say if persons are keeping things in any particular location without their knowledge, if that could already be the case overall. So there are some issues that you have to treat with in terms of security for the PM and others, yeah? While other persons might be doing their own thing. I hope you'd understand.
And Jensen, the decision is also based on the fact that we have seen successes of the SOE, and this is one of the decisions also in terms of a preventative situation that can occur also.
I'm glad you raised that. I'm starting to wind down on my questions. I know I promised you 10. That was about 5 so far.
I think you're at 11 now.
Nobody else has questions, Mr. Johnson?
You mentioned 936 arrests. How many of those arrests were linked to the plot, and how many of those arrests further went to detention orders?
That could be easily disaggregated, and we can ask the Commissioner of Police to provide those specific details for you.
Right. Small question here. Just a few nights ago, I was relaxing in my living room, and down the road, maybe about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, bam, bam, bam. Clueless as to whether it's fireworks, somebody, or if it's a robbery or a murder. And so I guess the question would be, to what extent does that feed into the decision? You know, the fact that these sounds can be you just don't know. You know, I mean, do you get complaints about that, and is this part of the rationale?
And reporter, you should be here, because you would have addressed our concerns and the concerns of many citizens, that what you just mentioned there. Earlier at my office, I had a number of persons come. The mere idea that the press release went out, their persons came and said, thank you for allowing the animals and them to breed at the zoo on that night, and the persons at the hospital. And this went on. There are persons who at the San Fernando Hill that also has a sort of nature resort, all of these places are affected. And I know many of you stand here today, you all have animals, you all have sick persons, you all have babies, and all of these things. That noise affects everybody. And it's about time that a decision was made. And we didn't take it away. All we said was, noiseless. Noiseless. Yeah. And if you look at our manifesto, which is now government policy, you'll realize where we're going with this. So it's not that we just doing things in a vacuum. This was planned long before.
Noise pollution.
Yeah? Noise pollution. All right? And there are many other types of noise pollution we intend to address in the not too distant future.
I know that ministers can't have any operational say in things, but in crafting a policy, one has to think about the enforceability when it reaches down the line to the police officer on the beat. So any concerns about the enforceability of against noise pollution offences?
Yeah, sure.
What we have done as a government, Sean, is that there are a couple of ministers working very closely together with respect to coming up with a particular concrete policy with how we go towards the elimination or the reduction of noise pollution with respect to the offences, the enforceability, and the appropriate judicial arm that will deal with those matters. So those are further announcements that will come, but rest assured, those discussions are currently underway. I would not want to prejudice the outcome of those discussions by giving any details at this point in time.
Hi, good afternoon, Sonolala, TTT News. Just for clarity, in terms of the sponsorship of these fireworks, could you say how it's being done? Who normally does it? If you could say who's going to do it this year, who was going to do this year, and in terms of you mentioned the fact that it could be spent elsewhere. Is there discussions with the person who was the company who was sponsoring to have it better placed?
So the state will not be paying for fireworks this year. We're very clear on that one. With respect to where the money will go, Minister Alexander always in cabinet is asking for more money for law enforcement. So most of the money will be going towards him with respect to those savings and so on. As I told you, the government also has a $9 billion deficit that we have to treat with.
Silent fireworks permits, it's already the 15th of August, I believe. How soon can these be issued for the silent fireworks, and who has to issue it?
Once the document reaches my desk and the Commissioner of Police, we will sign off on it. Yeah? So it's not an issue. Once it reaches my office, my desk, and with consultation with the Commissioner of Police and his team, we will take care of that situation.
Does it have to be done through the TTPS or just
TTPS, it's a TTPS situation there. All right?
One more question. I mean, I know there's one very big fireworks importer here. And as Sunil said, the time now is literally about 15 or 16 days. And I mean, to play devil's advocate, is there any chance of like legal action if this importer said, well, I had legitimate expectation to be able to import all this, and now look, I have a whole carton load or container load stuck on my hand? Any thoughts?
Sean, those are very speculative matters with respect to anticipated litigation. Rest assured, again, I reiterate, the government has made a very responsible decision with respect to national security. And I think you would have raised, in your question, your first question, one of those concerns with respect to discerning the explosions between fireworks and firearms and so on. So rest assured, we have made a very responsible decision, and we have considered various factors based on guidance from the security agencies.
And let me also ask you, how do you measure the effect on the population in terms of its value and monetary value? How do you do that? For years, many of you all here, I saw you all write reports, many years, of the effect that the loud fireworks had on its population. And now a decision has been made, so we expect the persons who was affected before will have a better understanding now of the direction we intend to take it. Yeah? And we hope that we have saved the population, medicals and otherwise. and the babies could now enjoy the arms of their parents without panicking.
And we're not going to risk the security of a nation for one's man profit.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I'm aware, there is no prohibition on loud fireworks, yes?
There is, in fact, according to the Summary Offences Act, if you look at it, that when someone wants to discharge fireworks, they seek the permission of the Commissioner of Police.
So for those who, as my colleague was speaking about, those who already have the loud fireworks, would the TTPS be seizing those things? If you are caught selling loud fireworks, what would happen?
No. The problem is the setting. The offense is the setting off of the fireworks. Once you set off the firework, it becomes an offense without your permit. So we are saying that that is already the existing law. Our policy is that permits will only be granted for noiseless fireworks. So therefore, if someone sets off fireworks that are not noiseless, well, then there's a law that will treat with that particular circumstance.
Going back to a question I previously asked, and I just want to be specific. Monday went, we had Monday Night Forum.
Yes.
And there was no major security concern then. Why not?
On Monday night, we did not have members of the judiciary. We did not have all arms of law enforcement in terms of the defense force and so on. You can't compare these two situations of a Monday Night Forum and the Independence Day Parade. You have to understand the gathering of the various groups of persons that I outlined in the beginning of my presentation. It's two different circumstances.
Why then not restructure the way the program runs rather than cancel?
When we looked at all of the options, this was the best option available to the government.
Now, going back to Mr. Alexander, in response to my colleague's question, you said that the planning for this was, it was planned long before, but earlier on, Minister Hussain would have said that this decision came in the last 24 hours.
No, that's
I
a fallacy.
I think you're confused somewhat with respect to what we had planned long before.
Okay, what was planned long
Well,
before?
tell me what
planned?
exactly where you're coming from, and I'll guide you.
In response to his question,
What was his
with
question?
regards to the fireworks and these things and the banning, and
Right.
he said this was planned long before.
Right. If you look in the manifesto, we spoke about that situation. It's government policy. You can take a look at it. I'm sorry we didn't work with one here today. Probably would have introduced you to it. It's a document you would have loved. It was a bestseller. So what happens is you could, that is how we treated it. We are looking at these things before we entered office. And now that we are here, we are treating with it.
And let me be very clear with you, Mr.
Yeah,
Jensen.
be clear with it.
The 24 hours issue was with respect to the decision of the Independence Day Parade. What Minister Alexander was alluding to with respect to what we had planned before was our manifesto promises with respect to noise pollution. It's two separate things.
And the bestseller, how much was made from the bestseller?
No,
The best-selling manifesto.
You know, there are some
the
bestsellers that you
the
just
ma-
need to be in possession of. It's one of those issues. Just be in possession of it, it makes it a bestseller.
It gave
because
us
you love to read it.
it gave us 26 seats.
Yeah, it gave us 26 seats. The bestseller gave us 26 seats. And if you gain possession of it, half of your questions would already be answered.
Minister, so just for clarity,
Sure.
could you just remind us the fine for setting off fireworks?
If I'm not mistaken, I had a look at the law. I think it's a very minimal fine. It's about $1,000 or so. So it's very minimal. But those are some of the matters as a government we are looking at with respect to our policy when it comes to noise pollution. Because noise pollution comes at there are various factors. Persons playing loud music, the setting off of fireworks. So we are looking at it holistically.
And some people choose to set off the fireworks, and we are aware of that, you are reporters. And at the same time, they allow their toys, their illegal toys, to go off at the same time. Now, who are we to tell the difference? Some of us don't know. So then we put our community in a state of panic. Yeah? And this is what we're trying to avoid. Yeah?
Just following independence, we have, I think, Diwali's and sometime in October. Will this also be for the silent fireworks?
So we have taken a decision with respect to the silent fireworks in terms of private display. So we are not going to distinguish between various celebrations.
And in terms of enforcement, Minister Alexander, discussions with the TTPS to enforce this throughout going forward?
Yeah, this is not new, you know. This is not new. Law enforcement always has the propensity to approach that in that way, with the idea of bringing persons before a court. So persons take the risk is on you. You are held by law enforcement, and that's why we ask members of the public all the time to share information with us. Yeah? And when they share information with us, it will go a long way in terms of giving the police information and have the police do their jobs.
Are there any stats in terms of people setting off fireworks throughout the past few years that haven't done so within the law?
Yeah, you know, a couple places, there were some issues. Like, take, for instance, persons would go to sometimes they look out and places like that and set off their fireworks. And it will cause a stir, especially if you come from a community where the gunshot seems to be the order of the day. And one of your colleagues would have alluded to that. So what we are saying is this: let us change the narrative, and let us try to have a society thinking about the safety and security for everybody, and not just you, but for everybody. So when we incorporated the thinking about the animals, and the old people, and the sick people, and the children, and the unborn, that is a government that is caring for everybody. Right? And we just want that level of support from members of the public.
Just for clarity, I know a lot of the Independence Day parade and these things, the focus is on Trinidad. A lot of the top-ranking officials are in Trinidad. What of Tobago? Since it's less volatile, would there be any...
Those matters with respect to Tobago, of course, those are within the control and the remit of the Chief Secretary, and you could probably direct your questions to Mr. Farley.
But as the government for Trinidad and Tobago,
Yes.
Is it that this is for Trinidad and Tobago?
The government of Trinidad and Tobago has one independence parade, which is in the Savannah,
It's recognized.
and we are in fact making a decision on that particular parade.
And just two things I want the clarification on or
Yes, yes.
comment
Two,
on. Yeah, just, well, one two-part question.
All
Then.
right.
All right. One is that earlier on today there was an incident involving an FUL holder in Santa Cruz who stood his ground, and there were two fatal casualties. Also, sometime last week we saw a high-ranking officer of the Defense Force being sent on leave, and days after his leave being recalled. Could you speak to that, please, Mr.
All right. Well, two things are happening here at the same time. The first one involving the shooting. I would want to speak to that person, whether it's a fuel holder or not. I allow police to do their job. Yeah? Sometimes we allow too much information to be put into the public domain, and it causes a risk later down. So I'm hoping that good sense prevail, and person's name and address is not exposed to members of the public under those circumstances, one. Two, with respect to the other situation, just like in this first situation, investigations are ongoing to find out if, in fact, it was so or it was not so.
So that
Okay. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much, members of the media. Enjoy your weekend,
Yeah.
and thank you for joining us again.
And here now, we tape everything on this there, so we will know, let's say we didn't say, we didn't say.
Yes, Alexander.
Hey, God, man, Corey.
All right.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, man.